This is the Electro-Voice RE320, and in just a second, I will show you the entire signal chain I use in tandem with the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. I'll also let you hear what this microphone sounds completely processed and wet versus totally untouched and dry. But first, a little background on this microphone. I actually own two of them. They are perfect for one specific thing for me, and that is getting a studio-type sound in remote and field recording situations. If I'm doing a one-on-one interview and it might be noisy in the background, these are great mics to bring out with you. Pretty good rejection, but also, like I said, being a large diaphragm dynamic microphone, it's really going to give you a best studio sound when you're not actually in a studio. Love the way they're built. I do appreciate the variable D technology in a sense that I can get up all on this microphone, and you're really not noticing a big difference as it relates to a bass-heavy presence like almost any other microphone out there. You can really get up on this thing, and it's not going to sound overly beefy, let's say. So very good in that sense. Let's get into the signal chain here. It goes channel strip, compression, EQ, and then lastly, compression. Here on the solid-state Logic 4000E, I'm actually gained up to 40.5 dB on this mic. There are some other places, too, where it boosts. I'll get into that in just a second. With dynamics, not compressing at all here, but I am using expansion. You can see when I don't talk, it's taken away about 6 dB. This microphone, not nearly as noisy as my other dynamic, which is the Shure SM7B. So a hotter output here. I'm also not using any type of inline mic activator like the Triton Audio Fethead, which I use for the SM7B. So this microphone with a little higher output, a little bit lesser self-noise. It doesn't need as much work on the expansion side. Low cutting at about 80 hertz, high cutting at about 16,000. Then I get into the EQ here. And I do have this microphone, by the way, on the flat setting. There is a kick drum setting I should tell you about. It sounds good on its own if I were recording this completely dry, and I will give you a sample of it later on. There is definitely a different sound when that kick drum switches on for voice applications. But here, boosting at about 6,000 hertz, only to about 2 dB on a high shelf. Taken out at about 6,500 hertz for de-essing there. Only taken away about 1 dB on a very, very tight Q. Reducing some boxiness at about 250 hertz here on the low mids. Only taken away about 2.5 dB. Pretty tight Q. And on the low side here, only boosting about 1.5 dB at about 90 to 100 hertz right there on a bell curve to try and keep it tight. Have the slider up here halfway between 0 and 5, so I'm boosting there. And also boosting a little bit in the output as well. And that brings me to first round of compression, the 1176 LN for low noise. You can see my input and output settings as well as attack and release settings. My ratio is 4:1 on this compressor. And you can see right now it's not working so hard. As I get up here on it more, it's doing its job. It's taming those peaks, the very highest of levels. You're seeing it do its work right there. But pretty much for the most part, normal speech. Unless I get really excited like that, it's not going to have to do a whole lot. All right, that brings me to the last of equalization here, gaining up a little bit. Again, trying to compensate a little bit here and there to bring the levels up on this mic. On the high side, in terms of the shelf, at about 16,000, I think is where this boosts. Pumping in about 2 dB right there just to give it a little bit of shine. You can also see in the mids at 1.6, so 1600 hertz, I'm taking away about 3 dB, just trying to get rid of some boxiness there with that cut. And then on the very low side at 60 hertz, I'm boosting about 3 dB, trying to give it some low-end presence. And I'm also low cutting, as I do with a lot of my microphones, at 50 hertz, trying to get rid of all the low mud that I really don't need. Now you're asking, could I cut higher? Could I cut at 80? Probably 160 is too high, but could I cut at 80? Yes. I'd rather record everything, including the lowest of lows, to cut those later if I need to, as opposed to cutting them in real time as I actually record it. It's easier to do it later than to do it right here and now. And then last but not least, the LA2A. This is the glue compressor that kind of puts it all together, gives me a great waveform at the very end. You can see my gain and peak reduction settings, and it's right in its sweet spot from 0 to -3 dB. With the 1176 in tandem, this doesn't have to do all the work, which is great. I mean, certainly if I get up here on it, it's doing more work, but you can also tell, like if I really, really yell, barely taking away more than 2 to 3 dB because the 76 is working, as well as this one in the very end. So that is the LA2A, and that is the signal chain for the RE320. This is what the RE320 sounds like, completely dry and unprocessed, and you should also know that the kick drum switch right now is disengaged. The RE320 is a professional-grade dynamic microphone for broadcasting, podcasting, recording, and sound reinforcement applications requiring extremely low noise and the best possible tonal and transient response. Ideal for capturing a wide variety of vocal and instrument sources, the RE320 delivers unparalleled detail, dynamic response, and pleasing natural tone. We're still dry and unprocessed here on the RE320, but now I've engaged the kick drum switch, and by the way, the gain is set to 53 dB. The RE320 is a professional-grade dynamic microphone for broadcasting, podcasting, recording, and sound reinforcement applications requiring extremely low noise and the best possible tonal and transient response. Ideal for capturing a wide variety of vocal and instrument sources, the RE320 delivers unparalleled detail, dynamic response, and pleasing natural tone. And now we're back fully processed. The RE320 is a professional-grade dynamic microphone for broadcasting, podcasting, recording, and sound reinforcement applications requiring extremely low noise and the best possible tonal and transient response. Ideal for capturing a wide variety of vocal and instrument sources, the RE320 delivers unparalleled detail, dynamic response, and pleasing natural tone.